When Harry Met Sally. One of my favorite movies from my favorite movie genre. Yes, believe it or not, your pastor is a romantic at heart. Your pastor prefers watching Julia Roberts run away from the altar in The Runaway Bride to watching Arnold Schwarzenegger learning how to say "Hasta la vista, baby" in The Terminator. I guess I'm not your typical movie-going male, only interested in elevated testosterone levels manifesting in the number of triggers squeezed in squealing car chases. It's fun with the guys on a Monday night, but it's not my cup of tea. I prefer the sweetness and richness and laughter that results from the addition of some estrogen into a picture. I'm sure we all have our favorites, whether they are from literature, the interplay and innuendo in the dialogue between Jane Austen's Elizabeth Bennet and Mr. Charles Darcy is, it's heaven. It's heaven. Or, from the newer genre, the modern movie. Who can forget the sparks between those couples of last century and this century? Spencer Tracy and Katharine Hepburn. How many movies did they make together? Lauren Bacall and Humphrey Bogart. Errol Flynn and Olivia de Havilland. Elizabeth Taylor and Richard Burton. Woody Allen and Diane Keaton. Tom Hanks and Meg Ryan. Julia Roberts and Richard Gere. In the spirit of those modern couples, how about we begin with a trivia quiz on some biblical couples? I'll say one name, and then you call out the name of the other person to complete the couple. Okay? Ready? Don't worry, there is no pass nor fail. Although if you call out the wrong name, you will be appropriately shunned. So let's start with that first couple, and the easiest couple, Adam and Eve. Excellent. Samson and Boaz. Very good. Mary and Joseph. Good. Isaac and Rebecca. Sarah and Abraham. Oh boy, should I even bring up some tougher ones? Ahab and Jezebel. Ruth and Boaz. David and Goliath. That was a different kind of a relationship. Bathsheba, last wife. But what about the first seven? David and Ahinoam, Abigail, Maacah, Haggith, Abital, and Eglah. And then David and Bathsheba. Okay, last one. Lot and... She has no name. She goes by the name of Lot's wife. Lot and Lot's wife. Okay, one more. New Testament. Jesus and... We could go Da Vinci Code here and say Mary and all that stuff, but no. Jesus and... who? The stories of Jesus, as given to us in the Gospels, do not include any romantic stories. Although Jesus coming to the rescue of the woman caught in adultery could provide some interesting material for speculation, as could Jesus hanging out with Mary and Martha. What's going on there? with speculation. There is none that we know. And any sort of a story would not be a comedy with the story of Jesus because, let's face it, it ends with tragedy on the cross. In some ways, I wish the story of Jesus included some romance. Maybe even Jesus being married, having a child or two. Think about some of our own sticky relationship issues with spouse, with children. Just one or two comments or parables from Jesus out of his own experience would be most helpful, I think, to us in our own time. It might even eliminate our culture's fascination with the advice of Dr. Phil. But all we are left with, though, are a few remarks. In the Gospel of Matthew, Jesus is against divorce. In Mark, Jesus declares that his birth mother, brothers, and sisters are not his mother, brothers, and sisters, but everyone is his mother, brothers, and sisters. That sort of confounds relationships just a bit. I guess any romantic intrigue would be out of the question for Jesus. After he came out of the wilderness to do the will of God as the Son of God, Jesus pretty much eliminated himself as an eligible bachelor. Yes? No money. No place to lay his head, let alone provide a nice, soft and scented pillow for a maiden's fair hair. He's always on the move, never at home. No change of clothes to speak of. And which available maiden would welcome a relationship with someone with the power of God to discern her very thoughts and desires from afar? A large part of the joy of romantic relationship is that dance of discernment. Deciding when to share a secret or a thought. How to unfold a dream from the depths of your very being or withhold a touch in hopes of the greater touch of a more intimate embrace. How many romantic movies include the following line? A woman who's just met the man of her dreams describing that first encounter to her best friend at a cafe. The woman says, "It was as though he could see into my very soul." Oh. Now, imagine that to be completely true for Jesus. No, really, this man could see into my very soul and my body. Entirely. It was though I was standing in an airport security puffer machine, metal detector, and x-ray machine, all at the same time while lying on a psychiatrist's couch. He could see me that well. It doesn't make for a romance, does it? While romance might have been an impossibility for Jesus, it's an all too common possibility for us. And the infinite possibilities which are presented to us. From the tragedy of the two star-crossed lovers, Romeo and Juliet, to the comedic interplay of the will she, won't he of Anna Scott and William Thacker in Notting Hill. Romance is full of twists of fate and turns of heart, proposals accepted, proposals rejected, double dates and blind dates, machinations of mothers and mothers-in-law, angry fathers not willing to give up their little girls. I'm going through that now. To woefully inadequate male suitors. What do you mean he's not going to college? Elopements, shotgun weddings, weddings called off and then back on again. The possibilities are endless. And that's just before you get married. Maybe Jesus sensed some of these more uncomfortable possibilities and decided to avoid the unpleasant ones by foregoing romance altogether. Maybe. Maybe the trip to the heavenly home to introduce a young woman to Dad posed too many earthly complications. Well, to meet Dad in heaven, you have to die. I'm not quite sure how I'll bring you back home. Paul, remember, preferred the celibate lifestyle. He wrote, "I wish that all were as I myself am." That approach would certainly solve the possibility of any misadventure from a romantic entanglement. But in fairness to Paul, he also recognized that that would be the end of the human race. If we were all celibate, well, no kids. Paul's yardstick for getting married was pretty simple. He writes about it in his first letter to the Corinthians. In the premarital counseling that I do as a pastor, I often wish that I could resort to Paul's simple advice. Instead, we pastors are trained to spread it out over 3, 4, 5, 6, God forbid, 7 sessions with a couple wanting to get married. Paul takes care of it in one simple sentence. He writes, "But if they are not practicing self-control, they should marry. For it is better to marry than to be aflame with passion." Might not want to explore what Paul thinks about passion after marriage, but it's an interesting yardstick that Paul holds up. If you can't keep your hands off each other, get married. Doesn't sound very pastoral, does it? But it's in the Bible. Can you keep your hands off each other? No. Then I'll marry. It's a good thing that Paul didn't set his sights on going to Hollywood to write a few romantic screenplays. I have yet to see a theological text titled The Romantic Paul. I have yet to see the church, universal, embrace romantic love. Ooh, it's too dangerous, too unpredictable, too hot, too passionate, too dangerous. The church is more often like the possessive and ever-watchful father of a daughter we'd like to see grow up to be a spinster than we are like Mrs. Bennet in Pride and Prejudice, who sees a potential suitor as long as he has money for each of her 5 daughters. Thank God for the Song of Songs in Scripture. The Song of Songs travels the road between these two extremes, full of physical longing and desire, and at the same time there's that warning that we heard at the end of today's Scripture reading. Do not stir up or awaken love until it is ready. That very tension provides the mechanism for the success of the great romances in literature and in movies. Romantic comedies delight in poking fun at the suffering that results from that tension. In the movie Love and Death by Woody Allen, one of my favorite characters cries out, "To love is to suffer. To avoid suffering, one must not love. But then one suffers from not loving. Therefore, to love is to suffer. Not to love is to suffer. To suffer is to suffer. To be happy is to love. To be happy, then, is to suffer. But suffering makes one unhappy. Therefore, to be unhappy, one must love. Or love to suffer, or suffer from too much happiness." Do you get the picture? Sounds like love. What is a lover to do? when faced with that? What are lovers to do? We have a phrase for this predicament in our language. We call it lover's leap. There's not really a spot here in Rensselaer that lovers go to and then debate, should we leap or not? It's pretty flat around here. I guess maybe the quarry. Is there a lover's leap at the quarry? Is that too horrific an illustration to raise in a sermon on a Sunday morning? Lovers leap, either jump off of the cliff together so that the world cannot pull their love apart, or make the leap into love and tell the world to jump off a cliff. Every ending to a romantic comedy follows that script. Finally, one lover or both realize that the leap must be made. In When Harry Met Sally, Harry is the one that makes that leap in the end. He runs across New York to find Sally at a New Year's Eve party and declares to her, "I love that after I spend a day with you, I can still smell your perfume on my clothes. And I love that you are the last person I want to talk to before I go to sleep at night. And it's not because I'm lonely, and it's not because it's New Year's Eve. I came here tonight because when you realize you want to spend the rest of your life with somebody, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible." Oh, that ranks as one of the greatest, doesn't it? What a line. With those words, you want the rest of your life to start as soon as possible. The romantic comedy comes to a close. And like all great stories of romance, it ends with the sentence, "And they lived happily ever after."